Have sound? Okay, thank you. 10 plus years ago, I had the pleasure of observing in Miss Murphy's classroom during our reading program, Reading First, and I had the opportunity to visit many classrooms during that period of time, but her classroom really stood out, and she stood out because not only was she a fabulous teacher, but she did something on the day that I was there that just stuck in my mind. And she had a student that wanted to talk to her, but she was trying to move through her schedule of the day, stay on time, meet her reading groups, and she looked eyeball to him and she said, "What you have to say to me is so very important that I want you to go get a sticky note off my desk and I want you to write every bit of it down and I'll read it later because it's really important to me." And so I just watched, and the young man did exactly what she asked him to do. And he wrote out exactly what that conversation, I imagined, would have sounded like. And of course, later, she went back and read it and then went back to correspond with him. So understanding the value of student voice and valuing it so professionally was just so amazing. So at that time, I asked Miss Murphy, I said, "Please, may we videotape your instruction, your classroom?" And she said no. She wasn't having it. And so 10 plus years later, Mr. Bobby Hart and I were sitting in a meeting together, and I said, "Oh man, you've got the best third grade teacher." I tried to get her to let me videotape her. I said, "If she ever changes her mind, let me know." And it wasn't a few days later, I got an email from Mr. Hart, and she said yes. So instantly, I went to our amazing communications team and said, "We're going to Hope because Miss Murphy has said yes." So Kim and Kevin and Gail and Miss Weta Newton joined us, and we went down for a couple of days and took a lot of footage and met some amazing educators in that building, some great parents, got to observe some amazing students. Miss Newton did our interviews. She made everyone cry, including me. But it's just so exciting what goes on in classrooms across Arkansas. And so Miss Murphy didn't just come today to be recognized, but she brought a team with her of all those amazing educators and friends and colleagues that have supported her along the way. So we're super excited about this, and I've asked Gail to kind of condense our feelings about this opportunity, because she won't cry.
There's no crying. Good morning. The role of a classroom teacher is vital in shaping the future of Arkansas. The value of teachers' expertise, commitment, and dedication cannot be overstated. They give their students the skills and knowledge they will need to reach their academic potential. However, teachers also give them the care, compassion, and guidance they need as they navigate personal challenges and obstacles in their lives. As a classroom teacher with more than 40 years of experience, Ms. Murphy embodies the definition of a professional educator. She's an outstanding example of how teachers impact students and their lives well after the end of a school year. And she serves as a role model for teacher interns and experienced teachers. Her patience and understanding makes a difference in the lives of so many. She has the unique ability to engage her students and show them that they are valued and important. She is a consummate education professional who's an asset to her school, community, and the state of Arkansas. On behalf of the Arkansas Department of Education and the Arkansas State Board of Education, I would like to thank Mrs. Murphy for allowing ADE to use her teaching experiences as the basis of this year's Teach Again campaign. This teacher recruitment campaign sought to motivate and encourage formerly licensed teachers to renew or obtain their licenses, return to Arkansas classrooms, and pursue their love of teaching and learning. The video series was instrumental in the campaign's success. Mrs. Murphy, please continue teaching, giving, inspiring, and motivating your students. We all benefit from your efforts and are deeply appreciative of your willingness to give so much of yourself to Arkansas students.
And Ms. Kaufman, thank you so much, all of you. Is there, okay, a video, sorry.
So I hope that he will take all that she's taught and as much as she loves it. I mean, she'll come to me and she goes, I really think he loves me. Yeah, yes he does. I mean, I don't really think she understands how much these kids do love her, but I hope he just takes that away, that she really does care and she really does love them, and I hope he will understand that he can probably go back and talk to her if he needs to about anything.
She just, even in times when you were having difficulty, she pushed you to succeed. She provided encouraging words. You know, I believe in you, I have faith in you. She didn't just have expectations for you educationally, but her class was like a safe haven. You knew you could discuss anything with her. It was a calming atmosphere, and she wanted your overall well-being to be positive, not just your educational experience.
And we all talk about that level of commitment, that we're all here for kids, and we all are. But she walks the walk and talks the talk. She makes that commitment every day. I know she's probably had a bad day, but you never know it. I've never seen her make a decision that was based on what was easiest or best for her. Most every decision that she makes, I know all of them instructionally, are made based on what's best for her kids.
My goals for each year that my students coming in, I start them out thinking that they're the advanced class. I have real high expectations, and I'll continue to have those high expectations as long as I teach, because most of the time with the high expectations, the kids will rise to the occasion. I decided that I wanted to make every child feel successful in everything we do, even if it's just a conversation. I just let them know that I want to hear what you're saying, but I may not be able to do it right now. And so they know that I think that they're real important. If I was going to give a message to my intern or future educators, I would tell them to love your students, never give up on them, set high expectations, and create a safe haven for them.
Okay, this may not have been a good time for me to have to come to the microphone. Thank you, board, for being here today, and I want to, I'd like to ask if Ms. Murphy would join me here at the microphone. Let me have a minute to make sure I'm not going to cry here. So I just want to take this opportunity so that those who are not here can see you, and for all of us to say thank you. Because our kids do need and deserve. They deserve you, and they deserve all the others like you. So thank you. And I'm very pleased right now to be able to talk about the success of the Teach Again campaign. We recently finished the campaign. Miss Janice Calloway, who was so instrumental in helping to organize and keep that going, was unable to be here today. So I hate that she's not here, but I want to be sure and recognize her. But from the months of November through March, we had over 500 educators inquire and ask about going through the process, and 372 licensed or relicensed. We are in the process of developing communication and surveys with them because we want to know what are your next steps. We want to stay connected with them, and we're going to follow them through this next year and then even beyond, because we were just so excited that they accepted the invitation, and so excited that we were able to just help reignite that. But we didn't do it here at the department. We did it because of people like you, and we need you to help us move forward. And I'm just very grateful to be here to share this today.
Not a real good time for me to be at the mic now. But I would just like to say to the commissioner and all of the people on the podium, my superintendent, Mr. Hart, my principal, Ms. Stewart, and my family and my friend, and all of you, I'm just so honored, and I appreciate everything. And I hope as long as I teach, I'll continue to. Thank you.
Ms. Murphy? And Ms. Murphy, if you could not sit down, we actually have a recognition for you. Ms. Murphy, I think we were warned that you're a very humble woman, but we aren't done with our recognition. If we could kindly have you stand again. We actually want to formally send you home with something. I know a piece of paper probably isn't much. It's knowing a person like you. It's the students that are your true legacy. But I hope you will humbly accept this piece of paper as just something that we can send home and to say how much we appreciate you and everything you do and what you've done for not just every kid that you've touched, but for our state of Arkansas and setting the bar for teaching and what it means to give and serve our communities.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all again so much.
So in anticipation, Ms. Murphy, that you would be so humble and brief with the mic, we have asked, I think, some of your colleagues and friends to maybe say a few words. I think Dr. Hart, on behalf of the district, if you might be so kind, and then anyone else that would like to share a few words. These are the moments we should not rush over ever in our agenda. We need to celebrate excellence in service. And so anyone that would like to be able to help us celebrate Ms. Murphy a little bit more this morning, we sure would appreciate your time.
Hope is a town of 10,000, so it could take a while. But as I was sitting here, I was just thinking, Cynthia is one of the reasons, or teachers like Cynthia are one of the reasons I went into education. And it means a lot. So I probably don't need to say a whole lot because I'll look like a fool. But people that go into this profession do it for the right reasons. The vast majority of us.
And she's a glaring example of that. So anyway, I'm proud to be her boss.
Yes, Ms. Kaufman.
With Ms. Murphy today is Ms. Niecy Randolph. You want to wave? Ms. Randolph?
Well, I've known Cynthia ever since we were about 5 years old. We went to elementary, junior high, and high school until the 11th grade. And then we split, and then we went to AM&N in Pine Bluff, and then we left UAPB. So we have been friends all of our lives. Her mother adopted me when my mother passed on. And so I'm just honored to be here with my sister and friend. Thank you.
And her principal, Miss Stewart, is here.
I've had the great honor to work with Miss Murphy for 4 years now. The smiles that she puts on children's faces on a daily basis is unbelievable, and I've told her that she can't retire. So hopefully she will support and mold the lives of young children for many years to come.
Miss Kristi Johnson. Miss Kristi Johnson is a colleague. She also is a third grade teacher at Clinton Primary.
Good morning. I'm going to make this short and sweet. But knowing Ms. Murphy for 17 years now, working with her, she is such a wonderful inspiration to not just me, but all of our other coworkers. And we just love her, and she's, you know, she's just wonderful, just a wonderful teacher.
Miss Joyce White. Miss Joyce White is the librarian at Burl Henry.
Good morning. I would first of all like to thank you all for just honoring my aunt. I will tell you this about her, and I'll be very short. Each year we asked her, Cynthia, when are you retiring? Because we know that she has the years to retire. And she usually tells us, I don't know. But there is always a reason when you continue to do what you love doing. And she is the reason myself, and my we're in education today. She was one of the best role models that you could ever have. She has always been a kind person, but I don't even think I would be in education if it had not been for her. And I wanted to be just like her. And I'm still trying to be just like her. But thank you so much, because she deserves this and much more.
Mr. Wayne Stewart.
Good morning, and as my sister has said, thank you all so much for recognizing my aunt. When she started her journey in Hope, I was commuting from north of Hope. We lived way out in the country, and so it was just exciting for me to be able to go to a larger school. And so one year we rode together because I didn't have a car, and so many times taking buses, trying to make connections, I would be late, but everybody worked with me. And so she has been the rock of the family. She is one of the first educators. I believe she was the first one of the family to go to college. And so she has inspired so many of us. But with her love and compassion for what she does, it's because of her that I was able to make the journey that I made. And so, Aunt Cynthia, we appreciate you so much, more than you will ever know and more than we have words to tell you. But thank you for all that you do and for all the lives that you affect. And thank you, committee. Thank you so much.
and Mr. Kenneth Stewart.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is an honor and a privilege to be able to stand before you today just to honor a lady that is just outstanding. And I'm not telling you that she's outstanding just because she's my aunt, but she's outstanding because of what she does in that classroom. You know, teaching about 45 years, you all, that's a long time. That's a long time. But if you have the patience to endure, to make sure that we can actually change the lives of our young people today. So, Aunt Cynthia, thank you for what you do. But I can rest assure you, I will not be in the business for 45 years.
Ms. Pfeffer, I think we need to sick you on that one and persuade on the vision. But Ms. Murphy, obviously, we've heard so much today about you and gotten a further glimpse of your legacy with all of these wonderful people that are here today. And I'm sure you'll join me in saying it takes a village for any of us to get to pursue our passion. And I think the fact that your village, your delegation was so large today, I think is further testament to you and your reach and everything that you've done. So thank you all. Thank you for letting us have the privilege of recognizing this amazing woman, but the teaching profession in general. And we really hope that you guys can enjoy the rest of your day, but more importantly, that this can be an ongoing celebration. And in the interim, for as long as you're able to stay in the classrooms, we sure do appreciate that, because I know that the community of Hope and all of our schools and students are so well served by amazing people like yourselves. Thank you all so much. And so, with final clap. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hart. Thank you, and thank you to all. And please encourage some of those students to become teachers as well. So I'm hoping in the spirit of Miss Murphy, she will also like that our next recognition is one of students and student achievement and students who've gone the extra mile in their own learning. And so I'm very, as a biliterate, bilingual Latina myself, I could not be more proud than to be leading this next item, which is the recognition of the Arkansas Biliteracy Award. Ms. Kerr, who is the Arkansas Department of Education ESOL Director, you are recognized.
Thank you, Maria, and the rest of the Board of Education and guests. In addition to being the ESOL Program Director here, I also happen to be the current president of the Arkansas Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages, or ARC-TESOL organization. And it is an honor to be here, though, representing the Arkansas Biliteracy Committee to present the Arkansas Biliteracy Award, which recognizes Arkansas high school students who have studied and attained proficiency in 2 or more languages. The award is the product of a 1-year collaboration between the Arkansas Foreign Language Teachers Association, ARC-TESOL, K-12 teachers, university faculty, and members of the community. It also involves staff here at the department. David Nance is the foreign language specialist. He's been involved in this as well. We developed criteria, designed a website, and 3 partner school districts, Springdale, Fayetteville, and Siloam Springs, participated in the application process this year. The Arkansas Biliteracy Committee is honored to recognize 95 high school students this year with the first Arkansas Biliteracy Award. 4 of our recipients are here today, along with their teachers, Kristen Novotny and Ellen Rainey. They are Spanish teachers at Springdale and Harbor High School, and they will present the awards to these 4 students who are representing the 95 that have earned the award this year. So Ms. Novotny and Ms. Rainey, if you would please come forward.
Hello, I'm Ellen Rainey from Harbor High School, and I am going to present the first ever Arkansas Biliteracy Award to 2 of Harbor High School's 45 recipients this year. You guys will come up. This is Dalia Gomez. This is Leandro Munoz Lazo.
Hi, my name is Kristen Novotny. I teach at Springdale High, and I also get to honor 2 of the 42 students from Springdale High School who were awarded this year. If you guys want to come on up. So this is Lisbeth Guardado. And Juan Marin. I also had the privilege as the Arkansas Foreign Language Teachers Association president this year to share with you a little bit about why we did this award and what we're hoping to do in the future. In Springdale, because we had so many students that were granted this award, we are going to have a special ceremony next Wednesday, and I'd like to give this invitation to Ms. Kerr, so she's officially invited to join us up in Springdale if she would like. Thank you. Welcome. But so again, thank you for this opportunity. What I'd like to share is that the Seal of Biliteracy is an award that is created by state departments of education or local districts that recognize students who attain proficiency in English and one or more other world language by high school graduation. The recognition of attaining biliteracy becomes part of the high school transcript and diploma for these students. The seal serves to certify attainment of biliteracy for students, employers, and universities. It's a statement of accomplishment that helps to signal evidence of a student's readiness for career and college, and for engagement as a global citizen. According to the World Readiness Standards for Learning Languages of ACTFL, they state, we must acquire the ability to learn, to understand, and to be understood in the languages of the worldwide neighborhood. And also from the TESOL International Association, they remind us that knowledge of more than one language and culture is advantageous for all students. Bilingualism is an individual and societal asset. The WIDA guiding principles of language development also state that students' languages and cultures are valuable resources to be tapped and incorporated into schooling. And finally, Greg Roberts of the Utah State Office of Education reminds us that monolingualism is the illiteracy of the 21st century.
Thank you. I regretfully will not be able to attend. I will be in, I'm trying to think what city I'll be in that night. I think I'm in Atlanta that night, getting ready to attend some training on making personalized learning for English learners and bringing that back to Arkansas to further equip our students to attain all that they can. So I regretfully can't attend, but I will make sure that somebody from the ARC TESOL board is represented at the recognition ceremony if at all possible. There are 4 national organizations that have collaborated to draft recommendations for the implementation of the Seal of Biliteracy: the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, the National Association of Bilingual Education, the National Council of State Supervisors for Languages, and the TESOL International Association. To ensure consistency in the meaning of this recognition, the Biliteracy Seal website offers guidelines for state departments of education and for local school districts. The Arkansas Biliteracy Committee members are willing to assist so that all students in Arkansas have access to the Seal of Biliteracy recognition. In 2011, the first state, California, adopted the Seal of Biliteracy. Currently, 25 states and Washington, D.C. have approved a statewide Seal of Biliteracy. And we would like Arkansas to join the National Biliteracy Initiatives so that we are not left out and that we have the opportunity to encourage our students to attain this level of biliteracy. The Arkansas Biliteracy Committee would like to request that the state recognizes this important award by granting an Arkansas Biliteracy seal on high school diplomas for future graduates. We would like to know how to move forward to obtain the seal of biliteracy for our students in Arkansas who have demonstrated proficiency in 2 or more languages. Thank you very much for your consideration, and it is with great honor that I'm here with these students. These are the students that we are here for, that this is what I live for. And I'm so excited to see them here and to represent the other students. And there are a wide range of students who earn this award. English learners who have a language other than English at home, as well as English-only students who have spent time learning a second language and become proficient in that second language. So this is an initiative that embraces and is all of our students, and is just an honor to bestow upon our students. So thank you for your consideration and how we can move forward in making this an official seal of biliteracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristi. And so with that, I would respectfully ask a commissioner or to our brilliant legal department if there's any guidance on, as Ms. Kerr has laid out, what would be the process about looking into this? If there's something we need to do at the state board level, or is it at the level of local boards, since we are talking about diplomas?
We'll certainly research that and bring back a report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. And then with that, I would say, Ms. Novotny, if you'd be so kind as to share that invitation with us, if we might crash the party. I think some of us being located up there and with schedules might be able to attend, and I think it would be an honor for us. And then with the indulgence of the board, I'd actually like to say a few words in Spanish to our students. Entonces, me gustaría dirigirme en español a los estudiantes. Pues primero que nada, muchas felicidades. No, yo sé que crecerse aquí muchas veces no nos motiva a seguir aprendiendo, seguir mejorando nuestro español. Entonces, ese logro es grande. Espero que lo sigan diciendo a los otros latinos, que sigan, ¿no?, con su español, por favor, porque sí les va a servir. Y yo sé que échenle muchas ganas, que van a lograr mucho en la vida, pero definitivamente su español es algo, es un don que nos ha dado, igual como nuestra identidad como latinos. Entonces, por favor, no lo pierden, lo acepten, es algo que sí les va a servir en la vida. Y yo tengo mucha esperanza que algún día ustedes tal vez puedan sentarse así aquí o en otros lugares, en otros plazos en el Capitolio, porque en realidad eso es lo que nos hace falta. Somos el futuro, somos el presente, pero también el futuro de Arkansas. Así, por favor, sigan adelante y que sigan esa relación con nosotros, informándonos cómo podemos mejorar la educación para todos aquí en Arkansas. Muchísimas gracias y les felicito. And then in sum, for all those non-Spanish speakers, I was just applauding them for, we know sometimes growing up, we're not always motivated to learn Spanish here in our country and to keep our language. And so I applauded them for keeping their language and to continue to keep at it, and that this is truly a gift that we've been given. And I feel very confident they're going to succeed, and so I encourage them to keep at it. And I have aspirations that maybe one of them will sit here someday or in another seat in the Capitol, because I truly do believe it's going to take all of us together. We have an opportunity to work all together to better the education for all Arkansans. And so I thank them for what they're doing and what they represent. Yes, Commissioner.
I also want to make sure we acknowledge the quiet man standing there in the back by the door, because David Nance, also on the ADE team, is very involved in this effort, and I don't want to miss an opportunity to recognize the hard work that he does with Tricia and the team there, working all over the state. So thank you, David.
Ms. Novotny would like to say one more thing.
Mr. Commissioner, we had the same minds. I was going to thank Mr. Nance and also Ms. Kerr, because without her connection to the board, her leadership with ArcTSOL, this joint effort would not have happened. And la señora presidenta, pues es un placer, un honor nuestro que usted, bueno, es una inspiración para nuestros estudiantes. So thank you so much again.
I think you have us all crying this morning. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. And to the students and teachers, I hope you can enjoy the day, this beautiful day at the Capitol. This is your home too, so thank you all. Thank you.
We're going to go be tourists for a little while.
Good, yes.
I have a question.
And yes, Ms. Zook.
How many, excuse me, how many different languages are in the ESL classes? Because I know we have many languages in the state of Arkansas.
There are 105 languages spoken in Arkansas by students in their homes. This specific award, I think there were 3 languages that students demonstrated proficiency in addition to English. So it's, that's how many we have. We have a lot of languages. It's a very diverse state, and it's exciting when they're all together, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you all this morning, and to enjoy, oh, sorry, Commissioner.
Just before we move to the next phase of the agenda, if you will allow me to add something that as we transition. So, okay, just wanted to make sure you knew.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you all. And then with that, Commissioner, you are recognized.
To my colleagues here on the board, this is one of those bittersweet times because we want to acknowledge the success of one of our team members who is moving on in retirement, and but she will not be here next month. She will be attending a graduation out of state, and so I wanted to give her the opportunity. She wanted the opportunity to make some remarks to you all, and then I wanted you as a board to have the opportunity to express your appreciation to her years of dedicated service. So, Ms. Barnes, would you please come to the podium so we can recognize you?
Still me. Yes, yes, yes. So sorry. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Commissioner, and all who are present. I don't have words to express my gratitude for all of the years that I've served with some of you and then many who have gone on before. I have been employed with the Arkansas Department of Education June 30th, 29 and a half years. 5 other years in a private facility, and some other years at Arkadelphia and in Little Rock School District. So, all told, I have been in education for 34 years. I do not know what my impact or my legacy will be, but I hope to see it as I am watching other people continue to do the work that I have been blessed to be a part of. I certainly want you to know that I respect the difficulty of your decision-making process, and I do pray that all of our decisions that we make, we weigh them so that at the end of the day we can lie down at night in peace. Many people wonder why I am choosing now to retire. That is because I recognize it is time. I had the difficulty of trying to juggle my schedule to meet the needs of my mother one week really. 3 different appointments, 3 different brothers had to assist me in making sure her needs were being met. And I recognized at that point, I am not giving her my best. I've tried to give my best in everything that I am a part of, and she is the reason that I am standing here today, and my father, who is now deceased. So I recognize that that means I need to shift my priorities. While I love my job, I have always appreciated the work. It has not been easy. Many of the individuals who know me through the course of my work are no longer even in education and may not even be living at this time. That's just a part of it. But I hope and pray that as I have served with integrity. That is important to me. I have always asked people to weigh decisions so that at the end of the day, you can know that integrity is the one thing people cannot take from you, but it can be given away. So I have made difficult choices. I have been a part of difficult choices, but I did not want anyone to be concerned about my choice to go home at this time and take care of my mother and myself. I have spent a lot of time not doing that, but I enjoyed the work. I started in this agency in federal programs, and I have been favored along the way to have always been promoted from among my peers. Many people understand that that's not easy to do. I certainly didn't do it in my own strength, and I am continuing in that strength that is higher than I. So I wanted to let you all know how much I appreciate the service that you do, how much I appreciate having had the opportunity to serve along with my colleagues who are making those very difficult choices. I try to always move the clutter, and then I look at the child. I'm asking you to continue to do that because it is the children that we are here to serve, and that's why we have to do things the way we do. I have great respect for the leadership here. And some of you recognize that these are difficult days. And so I also wanted to publicly have an opportunity to make the statement that I am not leaving because I am unhappy. I am not leaving because I have had issues with leadership. As a matter of fact, I have served under 8 different commissioners, 2 of which were interim, and I rank Commissioner Key at the top of those, along with many others. I have served with mentors. I have many, many mentors who have assisted me. And I know that because maybe they saw something in me, they extended a hand. I recognize that that is not something that I should have just taken and kept. Favor is something that comes along with responsibility. And so if I had favor, I always tried to make sure others had favor, but I also tried to hold them accountable to be responsible with that favor. I think that I have been sometimes a zealous person, but I have always prayed that it was not without wisdom or knowledge. That is all I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to continue the work. I am letting you know that I will continue to lift you in prayer because that is what I stand on. I don't like to say goodbye. My mother doesn't say goodbye. She says, "I'll see you later." So what I want you to understand is I will be around, just not here. I would have had these remarks next month, but as the commissioner has stated, it dawned on me that I won't be here next month. I'll be still working, but I will be on leave during the time of the state board meeting. So again, I want you all to know, I want others to know, while I've had the privilege of serving in an appointed position since 2005, which means that at any time I could have been informed that the new person was going in a different direction. I have not had that misfortune, and so I am thankful for that. I am thankful that I've had the opportunity to work alongside many people who are never given the recognition, but I've always tried to hold them in high esteem. I want you to understand there are people who are working hard every day to ensure that the decisions that you have to make are made on sound principles. And I will continue to be interested in what you do. I will continue to be a part of the Arkansas Department of Education because it's a part of me. I have had the luxury of serving with the best and those who did not seem to feel that they were the best, but I had the opportunity to see some successes. And so I'm thankful for that. I thank you for your service. I thank you for the privilege of serving with you and serving you in the Arkansas Department of Education. And I thank the Arkansas public, communities, state, school districts, and all those people that I have had an impact upon, hopefully positive, for this opportunity. Thank you very much, Commissioner Key. Thank you, Board, and thank you all for allowing me this time.
So, there are times in these meetings where you get a text from someone that, and this is one of those times that, nor did I realize that Ms. Barnes was not going to be here next week when we would have been prepared for a more proper send-off for her. So it may work out best because there are folks who I know would have wanted to be here to say something, and we would have experienced many tears at the microphone, probably like we did earlier with our earlier presentation. So I won't say, I won't make long remarks, but I do want to say that in the 2+ years that I have been here, Ms. Barnes has been a source of inspiration and of wisdom, of institutional knowledge, because certainly the things that have happened over the last 25 or so years in education in the state of Arkansas, she has been on the front lines. She has been at the point of implementation of many of those. She has seen the transformation where we are now from the various accountability systems that have been in place, and the beautiful thing about Ms. Barnes is that she has learned wonderful lessons from each one, the pitfalls, the successes, and how those can be incorporated into the direction we're going now. She will be missed. She will be missed around the state. She'll be missed here at the department. And I certainly, my hat's off to you, Ms. Barnes. My deepest congratulations to you, my deepest thanks for what you have brought to this agency on a daily basis, your leadership, your knowledge, your wisdom, your friendship, most of all. Thank you, and I wish you all of the best, as I can publicly state that here before this board in your presence. And please, we've celebrated folks like Ms. Dorothy, and Ms. Dorothy left, and I've not seen her again. I know she's out there. I know she keeps up. So, Ms. Barnes, I hope you're not like Ms. Dorothy, and when you leave, you never come back and say hello. So, thank you.
And thank you so much, Commissioner, and to your entire team for connecting the dots and letting us know about this opportunity, because where the flood of folks that we know may not be able to be here to offer testament and thanks, at the very least, we have an opportunity to embarrass, hopefully, Ms. Barnes, and also to, as you say, Commissioner, hold her accountable as in sharing her wisdom and continuing to inform us. And if we can share those words as well, we heard you say that, and we're going to hold you to it. But also, Ms. Barnes, we hear you and your call to action to us. And we're going to take that seriously. And we hope that this will be an ongoing relationship in that continued work together for our children. With Ms. Barnes, she's been here the entire time of my service, and a few words that I think for me encapsulate who she's been to me. Wise, without a doubt. There's few people that get before that mic and say something that I hold as deeply as yours. Never for a second have I doubted you are coming from an authentic but also a researched and thoughtful place, and that has been very, very appreciated. But also you are authentic and you are kind. And in this role in politics, where we are here serving children, we can't avoid it, right? We're in the policy realm. To know that there's somebody that is always authentic and kind in that process has meant a lot. Especially, I know, to someone like myself who is a newcomer to all of this. And you have, as a final word, exerted tremendous patience with all of us. And I think that's something I've appreciated as well. And so we are going to miss you. But as the commissioner said, we're not going to let you get too far, and hope this will be an ongoing conversation. And when we reach out, I hope you'll reach back. So thank you. To my other colleagues, Dr. Barth.
I do, and I'm obviously ill prepared for this as well. I thought I'd have to do this next month, but once you're around a place for 5 years, you really build deep bonds with folks. But this person has been really a rock for me since I've been on the state board, because she gets called upon when we're making the toughest of calls, and therefore having someone who is a consummate straight shooter in that role is exactly what we need when we make those tough calls. And I always knew I could trust her. I knew that she was telling me what was in her best judgment. She was not playing politics. She was doing it because what she thought. And she has become an amazing friend to me and a great ally to me, and I will miss her enormously.
Yes.
So, Annette, Ms. Barnes, it'll just make me cry, so just sit yourself right down there. So, when Miss Murphy was being celebrated earlier, even though I've never met her, the whole time I was listening to all these beautiful stories about her, I thought how we all need a Miss Murphy in our lives. I was lucky enough, I got so tickled at her comments in the video about telling her class they were all advanced. I had a teacher like that, and it took me years later to figure out I wasn't advanced. But that individual put into us a sense of confidence that put us into the world thinking we could do good things. And you're a Miss Murphy. From a rookie perspective, a rookie board perspective, I didn't and still didn't always feel very confident in what my role was or how best to contribute. But Annette would always catch me during breaks and say encouraging things. You would find something good in something I had attempted and call me on it so that I felt more confident in getting in and contributing and doing good. And that is such a rare quality. But it gets back to some of the things that were said earlier about Miss Murphy and about you. You listen. You pay attention. You value human beings in a way that guided your work ethic and your comments. And you were a champion in many cases for people that really needed a champion. And so sometimes those don't get called out or noticed or are not necessarily a formal part of a job description. But you did it with beauty and grace, and you will be missed. And the only thing that we can offer back in addition to our thanks and appreciation is we will try not to drop the ball and continue to carry that on.
Yes, Ms. Newton.
I just want to say thank you for your service. 29 years is a long time too. It's a long time to be the department, and that says a lot about your character and what you do, and it is very, very much appreciated. If I had one word to describe you, I think it would be wise. And that's the what we turn to. I think back to my years, Teacher of the Year. I would ask some really stupid questions, and I know it is, but you never made me feel that way. You always made me feel appreciated, and you answered my questions, and you got on my level, and I just appreciate all that you've done for us. But I know ultimately all that you did was for kids, and I really appreciate that, because that's my passion, and I know that's your passion also. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Zook.
I don't know if I can talk in the microphone and turn my head and look at you at the same time. When you were talking about working on and your department being involved in some of the more difficult areas, I'm so happy we're changing academic distress, as you and I have talked about, to levels of support. This is great. But because of my work with that committee and your guidance and that of your team, always making yourself available, always shooting straight from the hip, because you and I both know that we don't need to mince words. We need to talk straight. We need to know what we're thinking and why. And if one or the other of us thought the other one might not agree, we then talked and thought, well, yeah, we do agree, because we're both coming from the point where we always keep kids at the heart of all of our decisions. And I appreciate that in you. I appreciate your team and the hard work that they do. And that shows that you have been a good leader as well as a good follower. And I thank you. And I know you won't escape from me because I will continue to seek your counsel. Thank you very much, Annette.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Hill.
Yes, Ms. Barnes, I just want to let you know how much we appreciate all you've done, but also I greatly respect your decision for your mother to have time with her, being that I've dealt with something like that before, and that's a commitment that I'm happy for you, and I know grateful for you to have the opportunity to be with her.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
Thank you, and let me assure you, in case my mother sees this, my mother's okay. She, oh Lord, yeah, woo. But I recognize, and I am honest with myself, and I'm honest with her, and I've told her this: where there is not quantity, there should be quality, and I again want to give her the best of me, like she has given to all 10 of us. I have 9 siblings, and we are favored to all still be here. So my mother's not ill. As a matter of fact, I might get, I got a whipping, all right? I got a whipping coming because somebody's going to tell her, well, she made it sound like it. So understand, I am honestly doing this shift because my priorities need to be shifted. And that's the purpose of life. Life comes so that we can shift our priorities to meet it at our best. So I thank you all for your very kind words, and I thank everyone. I thank the members of the Division of Public School Accountability, as well as the Department of Education, for allowing me this time. And I will continue to be in touch. So thank you all very much again for your very kind words, and thank you for your service. And I am humbled to have had this opportunity. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Barnes. And Ms. Barnes, I know you won't regret, even with your mother not being ill, putting your family first. I know that's how I ended up back home, and I have never regretted it for one minute. But I would be remiss in not ending off in just saying you are a true Arkansas hero. And I just don't think we lift up our educators enough as the heroes of our story here in our state. And so thank you. Thank you, Ms. Barnes, for everything. With that, before we move on to our consent agenda, I know Representative Clark Tucker has been here waiting very patiently to had asked for the opportunity of offering remarks. And I apologize, I don't think I even fully appreciated the length of time we would be given to recognitions this morning, but I hope with your indulgence that you understand it was not something we would rush this morning. But we thank you so much for joining our session, and we'd like to recognize you. Representative Tucker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Chesterfield has also joined us here today. So, I thought it was going to be tough to follow Miss Murphy up here, and then we had the bilingual students and teachers, and then with Miss Barnes. So the only piece of good news I can offer you with regard to my presentation relative to theirs is no one will be tempted to cry for me while I'm up here. So y'all can, put the tissues away at least for now. So I just wanted to be here to discuss briefly the situation with Little Rock and our city and our school district. I know Senator Elliott emailed y'all this morning, but I wanted to be sure y'all saw the statement that 9 area Little Rock legislators issued yesterday morning after the election regarding the millage extension. And it's a brief statement, but I thought it would be important to read it here at the meeting. And the legislators were Senator Elliott, Senator Chesterfield, Senator Will Bond, Representative Fred Love, Representative John Walker, Representative Warwick Sabin, Representative Charles Blake, Representative Fred Allen, and myself. And the statement reads, "We were on various sides of the Little Rock School District millage extension campaign, which culminated yesterday. Some of us ardently supported the extension, others vigorously opposed it, and some did not take a public stance. However, we are united in our view that the time has come for an elected, empowered school board to return as the decision-making body in LRSD, working in collaboration with Superintendent Mike Poore to create a truly vibrant school district. In contrast, we feel that ongoing lack of local control only serves to deepen the divide in the Little Rock community and to restrict the promise of Little Rock School District. The State Board of Education has the power under current law to establish a date for a school board election to occur, with the board gaining the authority after being appropriately trained. We urge the State Board to take this action now to begin the process for preparing a return to local control as soon as possible, but no later than 2018. The strong community engagement in the issue of the millage extension shows that the patrons of LRSD are passionate about the opportunities provided our children. This was shown yesterday in the exceptionally high turnout for a May special election, but it has also been shown in the vigorous debate over the millage and the ongoing community activism related to the schools for the past 2.5 years. More people than ever before are ready to step up to run for the school board, to vote in school board elections, and to work to support their schools. It's time for a return to local control. So I wanted to offer that statement and then provide just a little bit of context for it. We actually prepared that statement on Tuesday before we knew the outcome of the election, and we thought it was important to do that because as a group, we are unified on the issue of return to local control. There are a variety of reasons for that. One, we all believe very strongly in a democratically elected school board, and I think that point has been driven home to this group, and so I don't need to expound on it for a long time. But the second point is, I think in the last 4 to 6 weeks, even since I was here before you this time last month, we have seen the community engage in a way, and really over the last 2.5 years, at particular times, but in the last month in particular, we've seen the community really engage in our school district. The turnout for the election was 11,000 votes, and no matter which, there's not really an apples to apples comparison for a school millage election like that, but no matter which way you slice it, the turnout was exponentially more than it has been before. As we all know, the election turned out 65-35 against the millage extension. I personally did support the millage extension for the benefit of that perspective for my comments. But in all of the discussions I had, and so when I came out for it, I had some constituents who supported that, and then obviously I had quite a few who didn't. So I hope they send me back so I can keep coming back to see y'all up here. But that's okay, because I think in all of the discussions I had with people on both sides of the issue, our goals were all the same. And that is an improved Little Rock School District. And we all agreed that the facilities, which is what the central issue in this millage election was, all the facilities need to be improved. And in the conversations I had with people who opposed the millage extension, and this was the reason they voted against it. And again, even though we had different, essentially, positions, I agreed with what they had to say, which is that the improvements that were being discussed for this millage extension were not enough. We actually need to do more for the facilities improvements in the Little Rock School District, and the facilities improvements are only one part of the discussion. We have to have a curriculum that's going to make us a world-class school district. We have to take care of our teachers in a way that's going to make us a world-class school district. And so that was essentially the uniform discussion in the city, no matter whether you came down in support of or in opposition to the millage extension. And so one reason I wanted to be here is to be sure that the message received in this building by a 65% vote against the millage extension is not that the community doesn't support the district, because I can 100% promise you that is not the case. The support in the city for the school district has never been stronger. And I wanted to drive that home. And I also wanted to relay, and obviously no one has a 100% approval rating, but in a lot of the conversations that I had about this election, I think people recognize that the superintendent Poore is doing a good job, and he does have quite a bit of support in the city. Obviously, he's made some difficult decisions, but by and large, I think people recognize he's a good person and he's doing a good job. I also wanted to relay very briefly, I was at an event this morning at an elementary school in my district with Governor Hutchinson, and he presented an achievement award check to that school for being in the top 5% of achievement and top 5% in growth. And so, we've always known that in Little Rock we have some phenomenal schools. We have some of the best schools in the state, some of the best schools in the country. And obviously, when the school district was taken over, we did have 6 schools in academic distress. As you all know, we've reduced that number to 3, and there could be some discussion about how much progress is being made in the others, but I think everyone would essentially recognize that there is progress being made in those schools. We are moving in the right direction. And so we have some great schools. We genuinely have a citywide commitment to make sure that every school in the district has the same opportunity to achieve what the elementary school in my district was recognized for achieving this morning. So we really have a lot of pieces to the puzzle in place. What we are lacking, really the big domino left to fall, the one piece we need to put in place is a school board. Because of the turnout, I think, as I mentioned, that statement was prepared before we knew the result of the election. But I think the result does speak loud and clear that that is the one domino that needs to fall. We can obviously do some things in our district before we have a return to local control, but I think the election outcome shows that there are some things that cannot and will not happen until we have that school board. And so our progress in our school district, and for that reason, the progress to be made for the future of the capital city of our state depends on that one piece, the return of a democratically elected school board. So it's been 2.5 years. We're moving in the right direction. We're making good progress, but we need to have that school board in order to be able to move forward. And so I think it's time for this body to state very clearly what needs to happen in order for that return to take place, so that as a city we can begin working toward that. And then also we must have a date certain for that return, so that we can begin building toward that and putting people who want to run for office, supporting those community stakeholders, and putting that plan together, that comprehensive plan for the future of our school district that will turn us into a world-class education institution. So I always appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Representative. And to offer the same courtesy to Senator Chesterfield, if you would, you don't have to offer remarks, but we want to obviously give you the opportunity to do so, as well as an elected official who's joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Commissioner Key. First, let me congratulate Annette. We've been friends for a very long time. It's so heartening to see her decide that family has such an important role to play in our lives. I was especially pleased that somebody from Hope, Arkansas, my hometown, was recognized by you this morning as well. I did not have the pleasure of having her as a teacher because I was out of school by that time, and schools were not desegregated when I was in school. So I would not have had the opportunity to know Mr. Hart as a superintendent on a personal level, but I've known Bobby for some time now, and am pleased with the fact that he's fighting hard for the kids in Hope. And I'm fighting hard for the kids in Hope, and I'm also fighting hard for the kids here in the Little Rock School District. It is my honor and my challenge to represent all 4 school districts in the Pulaski County Special School District. I may be the only person who can actually say that. I represent Little Rock, Pulaski County, North Little Rock, and Jacksonville. And I would ask that this board let our district go. We are on the right path in Little Rock to being what we always knew what we've always known we are, and that's a world-class school district. It is important to recognize that as the results of the election came in, we had feared that it would be I-630 North versus I-630 South. Thank God that is not the way it turned out. Precinct after precinct, regardless of location, said no, we will not have taxation without representation. And being a social studies teacher, that resonates with me especially because it is the founding principle of this country. And it is disheartening and disconcerting to know that people who live here and who serve on this board have not given us the support that I feel they should in returning this district to local control. We are now moving toward ESSA, and we are looking at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. And that's real cute, and I hope that it works out. But in the final analysis, our kids still feel that they are not worthy of being in a district that recognizes the greatness of its students and its teachers. It does not make sense to me that we had school districts across the state who had as many as 10 schools in academic distress, but they were not taken over. And I realize that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, but some consistency, it seems to me, is important. If there were 10 schools in Blytheville in academic distress, and you did not take over Blytheville, that's a far greater percentage of schools in that district than the 6 in Little Rock. It is time to be consistent. If they are now under local control and never were taken away from local control, it's time to return us to the same thing. I don't think what we're asking is unreasonable. I think it is in the same way there were schools in my hometown of Hope, Arkansas, academic distress, greater percentage, you did not take them over. Why are you keeping Little Rock? I ask you to reconsider that decision, Commissioner. I ask that you reconsider that decision, State Board, and send a message to the people of Little Rock, its teachers, its faculty, its staff, and most importantly, its students. You value us, and you realize the progress that we've made. I would appreciate a change in the vote of this body. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Representative, again. And I would just offer up to this board, it'll be a conversation for tomorrow, but I had the opportunity to meet with Superintendent Poore yesterday and do have a proposal for this board in regards to a final work session as my time as chair next month to continue the conversation and to follow up on the resolution as Ms. Zook had planted in our last meeting, which was to have conversations, since we can't have conversations that aren't on public record, to at least have some work session conversations where we can put forth our questions, our thoughts, and do some collective thinking together. And so that proposal I'll lay out tomorrow as part of my chair's report in the morning. So with that, I would like to think, I know we're usually nearing a break at this point, but if we could at least get through the consent agenda. I'm looking at my colleagues to see if anyone needs something urgently otherwise. But if we could proceed with the consent agenda, I will entertain any questions or requests to pull a consent agenda item. And if there is none, then I will entertain a motion in regards to our consent agenda this morning.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, motion made by Dr. Barr, seconded by Ms. Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our action agenda this morning. Action agenda A1, consideration of the Arkansas Better Chance 2016-2017 funding increase for classrooms. Ms. McKinney, you are recognized.
I know most of you know I am not Miss McKinney.
Yes.
So I'm Tanya Williams. I'm the director at the Division of Child Care and Early Childhood Education. Mary Kay is representing us in Chicago at a meeting with an initiative that Arkansas was one of 4 states chosen to participate in. So I wish her well there. I know she's representing Arkansas well, and the initiative is really about doing everything we can to support and improve and encourage quality in our current pre-K program. So I know she's having a very wonderful learning opportunity. I also want to thank the commissioner and board members for your continued support of early childhood education. I know that I'm not here generally, Mary Kay is, but I can assure you that every time she returns to the office, there's a report about how things went and the very thoughtful questions that board members ask regarding early childhood. We have a very unique relationship and partnership that many do not understand. And just because something's been done a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that it should always be done a certain way. But I want to thank Commissioner Key for his continued efforts on our partnership, and I can tell you that we are coveted nationally. Many things that we take for granted because people don't know about them, but when I go to national meetings, many state representatives that are in the similar role to myself are meeting each other in early childhood from K-12 for the very first time. And folks don't understand the incredible richness of what we're doing here, because what it allows me to do is to think about all children birth to 5 in Arkansas and try to make improvements for all children, not just the very small number that are in pre-K. So I just wanted to acknowledge you all for that. I also want to make you aware of 2 things before I get into the items, and I know you've had a big morning. I wanted to let you know, I know there's been a lot of talk about the longitudinal study, and thank again Commissioner Key and the governor's office and many folks who worked prior to the session and during the session to reconnect that dot because of some changes in how student data was being looked at. We did have about a 3-year gap. I can show you right here that we have a report already, and I will be sending it as soon as I return to the office so that you'll have a chance to see it prior to the next meeting and be able to digest it and maybe have some really thoughtful questions about it. What I would point out to you is that students in Arkansas who get Arkansas Better Chance has not changed in the 13 years that I have been in this position. Children who get pre-K compared to their peers who do not score better, more proficient on every exam. There have been some changes in assessments, and you'll start to see some interesting data about that. I think it can really inform our work across P12 around assessments and what that does to children when they're having to learn a new assessment system. And we do see a little hiccup there, but it's for all students. I would say it's across the board. But children in pre-K by 5th grade are right back on track. I think an even bigger part of the work of the Arkansas Research Center is a return on investment analysis. And for every dollar we invest in pre-K, by the time students are in 5th grade, there is a $3.58 return on investment. There are not very many things that you can give $1 for and get almost a $4 or $3.50 return on. So I wanted you all to know that as state board members, because I think that's very important to the work. And then lastly, before I start with the action items, is Arkansas has been awarded for the very first time a $3.8 million Early Head Start Child Care Partnership Grant. Head Start is generally funded federal to local. This was the first attempt at something very new in our state, and it's very specific to babies because many families work and many low-income families need high-quality early care and education for the youngest citizens. It will only serve about 168 students, but we'll be working with high-priority need communities, many of which you have seen in here and have to take action regarding, but to connect those resources into those communities to help lay the foundation for high-quality programming at the local level. So I wanted you all to be aware of that, and I'm just going to jump right in to the action items. This is, everything that's on here is about what balance remains in the pre-K funds. Every year, because we have programs that have a child who may leave during the course of a month, we pay them based on their enrollment, and so there's generally a little bit of money left. Some years there's been a little more than others. This year there was a little over $1 million remaining at the end of the year, and so we have attempted to do a couple of things. The first item is about giving programs that are going to be expanding classrooms next year. Some of that is with some other federal child care dollars that we have. Some of it may be returned pre-K slots that they wrote for, but it's to give them a little bit of money to help purchase supplies for those classrooms. So that's action item 1. And I'll give you time unless you want me to present everything.
Oh, I leave it to your discretion, Ms. Williams. Would you prefer, due
Let
to
me
the
just do it all.
interconnectivity?
Let me
Yeah,
just
and then
do
we'll
it
just
all
take
and then-
every item
okay.
at a time. That sounds great.
And if folks have questions, Madam Chair, please feel free to stop me. The second item, we have worked with, and this is another wonderful advantage of our partnership, there's a wonderful video that I saw that Forward Arkansas has put out about what is happening to children in foster care with regard to prison. If you haven't seen that, I encourage you. But we have made a very concentrated effort because of what we know about brain development and children who are exposed to very toxic situations to work with our sister division, Children and Family Services, to ensure that children who are 3 and 4-year-olds will get access to high-quality pre-K, Arkansas Better Chance. So Paris School District has served a child, and so there's an item asking for some additional funds that it's $6,318 just to pay for that foster care child that they served beyond what had already been approved. And then there are the professional service contracts. These are efforts to do things like content area, so literacy, early learning standards training, math and science, social emotional supports. It is supports for the teacher assistants in classrooms, but those are professional service contracts, and those are with generally universities. You'll see University of Arkansas, Arkansas State University, Dawson Co-op. Those are generally family engagement strategies that we're working on, but those professional service contracts are next. And then you will see a couple of new things that we haven't done before with what the remaining balance after those. We have had a partnership with AmeriCorps in South Arkansas over the past several years. They have actually given us some data, and I'll be happy to forward that so that you all can see it, for, I think, about 8 school districts that they work with that shows some real improvement around literacy and math scores. But to support that effort, we're asking for consideration of that. We also have a new one that I'm very excited about. It was a little bit of a last minute, but to support the RISE initiative, the reading initiative at the Department of Ed, as well as the Dolly Parton Imagination Library work, we've asked to send $275,000 over to the state Dolly Parton Imagination Library work so that children will get books under the age of 5. So I think that is everything that we have. Everything else is giving to the programs. We just took the remaining balance, divided it by their enrollment, and it came out to about $30 per child. This would allow them, they could buy books for summer to extend learning activities as children go home for the summer. They could do some enhancements. It's not a lot of money, but it is the remaining balance of the Arkansas Better Chance Fund. So with that, I'll stop and entertain any questions.
No, thank you so much, Ms. Williams. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and we really appreciate your presentation and all the information you provide. And for my colleagues and for those following us on live stream, she just presented on action agenda items A1 through A4. So with that, we'll entertain questions, and then beyond questions, we'll entertain motions in regards to each action agenda item. But any questions to begin with? Yes, Ms. Newton.
I had a question about the action item 2. The foster child. I know when that happens, lots of times it's in mid-year or and it's unexpected. And if it's like in my area, the programs fill up. I mean, they're at capacity. What do you do when you have that foster child coming in the middle of the year and your program is at capacity?
So we've used a lot of data analysis, and in this particular program, they had 20 children in a classroom, and we allowed them to go over one child. If a child leaves, they don't backfill, but in this case, I think they went over that 20 that we currently hold. These programs can only have generally 20 children in a classroom with a teacher and a teacher assistant. I think Paris, we gave them permission. They have a very high-quality program at the district, and we were able to support them for that. So we don't see that happen every time, but that is the challenge sometimes, is that these classrooms are full. Part of it is we're trying to do more this year on the front end as we do enrollment and recruitment. We started this work right at the beginning of the school year, so those classrooms did fill up last year, but as you go forward, I think you'll start to see, we have about 200 children in foster care that we're serving. I think you'll see a little bit more of that as we go forward, but that's what happened this year.
So you're willing to be flexible with numbers.
Absolutely.
If it's best for the child?
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newton. Yes, Dr. Barth.
Just a note of thanks on the longitudinal study, and I know a lot of people worked on that, and it's been a challenge, but I want to thank you in particular for your work on that. I know that we all have, I think, been frustrated by the absence of good data in this. Yes, I know. Everybody has who's works on this issue. I think it's one of those things we thought we knew what was happening based on what's all the good national data, but it's really important to have Arkansas data, and so this is I look forward to seeing it, and thank you for your work on that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Yes, Ms. Zook.
I guess Mary Kay braced you for me because I always have lots of questions. First question is, did you find a headhunter for your husband so he's not hanging out? Her husband's the superintendent of Russellville School District, and unfortunately he's leaving, but fortunately for Mr. Gocher, he has a new job. On the item number 1, are these added seats?
They are not, they are exactly the same number that we had last year, but they are new classrooms for these programs. Some of them are through some federal dollars that we have, Ms. Zook, but some of them are reallocated ABC slots. As most of you know, we haven't received funding to expand the program in about 9 years, so these are just reallocated slots.
So
but it could be a new classroom for that particular district.
So the $3 million additional dollars will not go to add seats?
That is correct. The governor has made that very clear. He wants to support quality and the existing program.
Okay, and I think Ms. Newton asked my Paris question. Or like on the action item 3, are these contracts bid out?
They are. We follow the state procurement process. Most of ours are through 7 years. That's generally the practice. And these will end this coming year. That will be and so we will be recompeting those out. But you can stop renewal at any point if you have an unsuccessful, experience with a contractor with good cause.
Okay, and the environmental rating scale, how often is that done?
In Arkansas Better Chance programs, we do every 3 years. And we usually focus on new classrooms. Those are kind of we give them an opportunity to learn before we go in, but every 3 years is what we're doing with ABC programs.
And for those pre-K programs that are connected with the school districts, have they considered using DIBELS, since that's what's used in the K-3 now, as opposed to the assessments that you are using?
So, that's a very good question. I haven't had anybody request that. We certainly could look at that. We've tried to keep, because the law that created Arkansas Better Chance is very specific that we have to have one assessment for all children. We would probably have to take a law change to make that. But it certainly doesn't preclude them from doing DIBELS if they wanted to with children in their program. But the current assessment is a holistic assessment. It includes language, math, it looks at everything, but it allows us to look across the state and see all children that are participating in Arkansas Better Chance. So there's some advantages to that, but that's a good question. We certainly could talk to folks who are interested in that.
Yeah, is it a state or federal law?
It's the state. It's the Arkansas Better Chance law.
Okay. And almost finally, the $2 million for professional development seems like a lot of money. And help me realize why it's not.
Yeah. So if you think about the $111 million, that in that context,
right,
that's a pretty small amount. I don't know. I haven't looked at the Department of Ed's, but we try to run things fairly parallel to how the department. But teachers need training. I mean, we have teachers who are coming in that are new sometimes. We have teachers who are seasoned and experienced, but sometimes teachers in schools are moving from K-6 down to pre-K, and they may not understand sometimes early childhood development. So we've, early learning standards, we haven't had a revision. I think Mary Kay presented that. So that's a big part of our training this coming year, is making sure everybody understands the standards revision and what those are. But we certainly can take a look at that. I will say over time, there are things that you will shift in priority. So, we may have a big focus on literacy, and while it may be focused with certainly looking at RISE, but over time you may go, well, all the teachers are trained on that, but what are other areas? We look at this data, as Dr. Barr said, this data absence can create a problem because we have to be able to see what's going on out there in the field. The environmental rating scales gives us some of that data, but the assessment or the longitudinal study also gives us that, and we can go, oh, there's something happening in math. We know math in general with early grade teachers, but in pre-K it's the same way, so we've got to make sure that we shore that up. So, we certainly can look at the amounts, but I would say I would make, a case that teachers and teacher assistants need training, but we just have to look at what are we training them on and why are we training them on that? Just for training's sake, or is there data? And we've tried to use data to inform, here's what we need to be focused on.
Okay, so
but that's a good question.
I totally agree on the need for professional development. I don't question that at all. So this could be 5 or 6 or 8 sessions per teacher, or so it's over the whole thing.
Absolutely. It's over the course of a whole year, and it's a lot of teachers. And it could be that you need some intensity. We work, as many of you have seen certain schools, we do a lot of work. Some of the effort is with a handful of programs that need a lot of intensive work. Sometimes because of changes in leadership or staffing, they may need more than a school that's operating at a very high level, or a program that's operating at a very high level of quality.
Okay, and the question that I get asked a lot, and I encourage your department and ADE to work together to at some point give us a hypothesis, if nothing else, is more than 50% of the 4-year-olds are in a pre-K program. I think it's closer to 60, maybe a little more than that. And then the other kids are assuming they don't need it, or different class of family, different socioeconomic group. And we hear the financial gains, but we also hear that this increases the odds that they will be on grade level by age 3. I mean, 3rd grade, sorry. But we have the 35% or 40% that aren't in pre-K, and we have the 60% that are. But then at the end of third grade, the kids are tested, and less than 35% are on grade level. So I applaud the governor for wanting us to work and find out where is the disconnect. If we're working with them, if we're aligned with K-5, something is amiss. And I'm not always sure it's the kids. So
now
I would just encourage all of you. I know you are more concerned about that than I, but it is a concern, and I get asked that a lot by lay people and our parents who are saying, well, is there any point in pre-K because, and blah, blah, blah. And fortunately, there are a big percentage of citizens, families that are concerned and do follow this. So at some point before I leave the board, I hope that we can find out why that we are not on grade level. I personally think that we should be thinking on grade level by the end of fourth grade as opposed to third, because the developmental differences between male and female and poverty and non-poverty, but that everybody wants to think about third grade. So I would just encourage you to, if y'all haven't already, to brainstorm about that in your department, work with the ADE, see if the quote tested numbers are in fact real, and help us with that, because we all want to get behind programs and quality programs that work, but we don't have answers for that particular question.
So that's a very fair question. I think it's certainly doable. I know the commissioner's nodding his head. We'll certainly look at it. I will tell you anecdotally that because only 60% have access, there's about 30 or 40% that do not. Mm-hmm. And we look at the data on children that we serve in another federal program, and their test scores do not look the same. And I would venture to say that when children do not get access, especially low-income children, they're going to continue to drive those test scores. We're still going to see that gap, but it's not necessarily the pre-K and Head Start children for that matter. Both of those programs seem to be getting good outcomes when you look at them and track them out through third, fourth, fifth grade. But there is a population of kids that aren't accessing sometimes anything. I talk to superintendents, and they have kids that are coming that aren't even getting, what I would call just childcare in the community. They haven't been anywhere. And that is very concerning, and it's made us start looking at family engagement in a different way. How can we help, either with home visiting or just help families know here are the expectations? So we have a whole team back in my office that's doing nothing but going around the state working with families, but really focusing on school readiness, kindergarten readiness type things. I mean, being very strategic, not just we're going to help families, but very, very specifically. And we could certainly add some of the work with RISE and Imagination Library to get books into the hands, but to help these families understand that, everybody has a choice about what, whether or not you're going to send your child somewhere, but we all want them to be ready. We all want them to have the skill set so that when they come to school that they are prepared. So that's a very fair question. We certainly can do some work. I think we haven't really dug into that deeply, but I have anecdotally, because yes, that's the kind of stuff that keeps me awake at night.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams. Yes. No, you're good, Dr. Grant. Yes.
I'm looking at these numbers on PD, and that's a lot, which is good if it's quality PD. So I'm just wondering how you evaluate the success of the PD, or what kind of data you're using, and are you surveying the teachers, or how do you know that you're getting the best bang for your buck?
No, that's a great question. So there are some tools that we use. The environmental rating scale is one, because it has specific categories, and you can look at some things around teacher effectiveness. There are some other tools that are being used. We do surveys. Obviously, every training, we require that the professional service contractor has a tool so that folks can provide that back in anonymously even. And so we take all of that, but it's a lot of data analysis that goes into that. And we do find sometimes that, either a particular trainer or a particular training may not be giving us the best expectation or the best bang for our buck. So we do modify. And sometimes, even if it's the same contractor, we'll be modifying the focus of what they're doing based on that data.
Thank you so much.
So with that, I don't know if there are any additional questions from my colleagues. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion, and we'll take each action agenda item separately. So is there a motion in regards to action agenda item A1, which again is the funding increase for the classrooms?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Newton, seconded by Ms. Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to action agenda item A2, and this is in regards to the Paris School District.
Move approval for additional funding for ABC programs at the Paris School District.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Barth, seconded by, I heard Ms. Chambers first, so seconded by Ms. Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to action agenda item A3, and this is in regards to the professional service contracts. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the ABC Chance professional service contracts.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, motion made by Ms. Dean, seconded by Ms. Chambers. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And then finally, action agenda item A4, this is the enhancement grants. I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of the 2017-18 professional, oh, excuse me, wrong one. The enhancement grants, I apologize. 16-17 enhancement grants.
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Barth, seconded by Dr. Hill. Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Once again, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Ms. Williams.
Thank you. I will be sending you the longitudinal study when I get back to the office. I'll send it to Deb Kaufman, and we'll get it out to you before the next meeting. Thank
Very
you.
much appreciated. Thank you, Ms. Williams. And with that, we will take a 10-minute break and return at 10 to 12. Thank you.
Just trying to get my first baby on and off. She's a junior this year, so we're trying to make sure we got her all settled for college next year.
I got you.
She has been wearing me out. She has been wearing me out because I was going to all of her stuff.
Yeah, you knew about my right? My emergency. And the Commissioner, Ms. Chambers, here.
This one of them? No, because it's going to look like that. It was later than normal.
Yeah, I put 10:08.
I would do this one.
Maybe they'll fire us for the afternoon.
There's no way. They might give you a big raise and say.
They have phones, and that's why I can see about technology.
So I'll go tell Coach Judy, oh, I messed this up, send me home. He can sit back in there. I tried.
Whereas that's common. You know what I'm saying? That means.
Person that's taken out his life.
Dr. Owen.
If there's no citing of Ms. Chambers, I think, or something, I think we'll just go ahead and get started then, just because,
Deposition in Conway, but if I don't make it, send somebody else, but I would think.
If we could kindly reconvene, I know we have a long agenda today, and we do have some teachers that need to get back to some classrooms. So with that, just to let everyone know, this has been done in consultation with the department, but we're going to take the next agenda items out of order just slightly, and we're going to consider action agenda item A7 next, which is a consideration of waiver request for teaching license for Ms. Carol Mccallum. And with that, Ms. Harris-Ritter, you are recognized.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is a consideration of a waiver request for a teaching license for Ms. Mccallum. The department recommendation is that you grant the waiver. I've given you a handout of documents that Ms. Mccallum provided through her attorney. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Clayton Blackstock, her attorney, to answer any questions and let you know a little bit more information about this situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good morning. Clayton Blackstock on behalf of Carol Mccallum, who's here, a teacher from Fort Smith, Arkansas. You've dealt with a number of these before, way back in 1999. She left her child who had the chicken pox in her car seat while she went in to get the medicine for her child, and a police officer was standing out there in 1999 and said, "You left your child in the car unattended." At that time, people got put in the child maltreatment registry without any notice or hearing, and because the law was unconstitutional at the time. So this is one of many clients who I've represented who 20 years later realizes that their name's in the child maltreatment registry and had no idea that it was there. The law provides, of course, for a waiver when somebody's been put in the registry, and so in order for her to get her contract renewed at Fort Smith, where she's ready to have it renewed, she needs to have a waiver. If she had known her when she was in the registry back in 1999, she would have been able to get out immediately, but had no idea until her license came up for renewal just this last time. She's been teaching for many years. Her license has been renewed multiple times, and we will eventually. We've filed a petition with the Department of Human Services to have her name removed. That'll happen probably later this month, but in the meantime, she needs to have her contract renewed with Fort Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Blackstock. And Ms. Mccallum, I don't know if you'll be offering any testimony. If you will, I'll swear you in, but otherwise I can open it up to questions from the board.
Yeah, there's no testimony unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, so with that, again, I look to the board for any questions or comments. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to grant the waiver.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Williamson, seconded by Ms. Zook. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank
Best
you
of
very
luck,
much.
Ms. Mccallum, and thank you so
We'd
much.
like to thank, too, your next person on the agenda for allowing us to go ahead of them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Blackstock. So with that, now we'll revisit action agenda item A5, which is our PLSB case on Clinton Irving Clay. It's an educator's proposal to settle case prior to the state board review. Ms. Harris-Ritter, you are recognized.
Thank you very much. This is a little bit unusual that there is a settlement offer made directly to the state board circumventing the PLSB process that has been going on. I want you all to know that this process is allowed under Arkansas Code Section 617-428C4. It just doesn't happen very often that someone uses it. So that section states that the State Board of Education may make an informal disposition of the ethical violation by stipulation, settlement, consent order, or default. And although Mr. Donaldson, who represents Educator Clay, did provide a courtesy copy of the settlement offer to the PLSB, the offer is directed to the board. So the PLSB, of course, recommends that you decline the offer and we go forward with the state board review. But I'm going to step aside and let Mr. Donaldson make his settlement offer to you at this time.
Thank you. If you could kindly state your name for the record, sir.
I will. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tom Donaldson, and I'm a practicing attorney in Marion, Arkansas. I'm honored to be here before you today on behalf of my client, Clinton Irving Clay, which most everybody calls Coach Clay, a man who has been a universally well-respected educator here in this state for over 29 years. We have, as Ms. Harris-Ritter said, been pursuing a process separately, and we had a hearing before an evidentiary panel back on February 10. We have appealed that decision and recommendation to you. But the reason we're taking this step is that Coach Clay, more than anything, wants to deal with this matter and try to put it behind him after he's had such a sterling career as an educator here. Accordingly, we have proposed a settlement that you should have been provided with a copy of, and that settlement would require 2 years of probation, a $75 fine, complete training on the AETN Arkansas Ideas online portal, courses IAD 14491, classroom management, managing challenging behavior 2 hours, IAD 14492, classroom management, building effective relationships, second edition 11 hours, and LAB 15051, closing the attitude gap 2 hours. It would require written reflections on how each respective training will impact Mr. Clay's future conduct with students. Mr. Clay would be required to complete the training and reflections within 90 days of the State Board's final order, and Mr. Clay would be responsible for all associated costs. This settlement proposal differs from the recommendation of the evidentiary hearing panel in only 2 regards, and that is that it requests 2 years probation as opposed to the recommendation of 6 months suspension. And the only difference is the amount of the fine. The maximum fine for a probation is $75, so hence it's less than what the recommendation is of $100. So those are the only differences. We believe this settlement is more consistent with the board's decisions in prior cases than the recommendation of the hearing panel, particularly given the hearing panel's conclusion that there is, quote, no conclusive proof that Educator Clay intentionally struck the student outside the bus, close quote. We also believe this proposal achieves the board's goals of correction and deterrence while not putting the board in the position of essentially second-guessing the local Marion School Board. Shortly after this occurrence took place back in April of last year, 2016, there was a lengthy hearing before the Marion School Board on the recommendation of the superintendent to terminate Coach Clay. The Marion School Board voted unanimously 6-0 to reject that recommendation, and Coach Clay immediately went back to work and has been performing his duties as Dean of Students and men's high school basketball coach ever since without further incident. I would also note that 3 of the board members from Marion actually came over and testified on Coach Clay's behalf before the evidentiary hearing panel, as did the incoming superintendent, Dr. Glenn Fenner, who some of y'all may know from his prior role as president of Mid-South Community College. In any event, we believe that this settlement proposal is fair and is in the best interest of all parties, including this board. With that, I would be glad to answer any question you have with regard to the cases that I referenced, with regard to the facts of this case, or any other question that you have. Otherwise, we would submit this settlement proposal to you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. Ms. Harris-Ritter, do you have any additional comments on behalf of the department before I open it up to questions from the board?
Well, I feel like I'm really not able to make comments regarding the settlement offer because it wasn't made to the PLSB, but to circumvent the PLSB. I would say that one of the reasons that the department believes this should be declined is we do believe you should hear the other side of the story. There was a lot that wasn't said by Mr. Donaldson. That, for instance, the school board deals with employment. Y'all deal with code of ethics violations. There are other aspects of the case that I think that really should be pointed out. So as far as specifically commenting any more on the settlement offer, I think I'm probably right at the line since it didn't come to us. But thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Harris-Ritter. So with that, I open it up to questions. Ms. Zook.
This is for Ms. Harris-Ritter. Are there things that that you're saying the PLSB board would hear that were not in the packets we received?
No, you received the record from the PLSB, but you received it related to the state board review, not related to the settlement. That you were sent has all the evidence that was presented at the evidentiary hearing. It has what was recommended by the ethics subcommittee in their reasonable belief review, in addition to what was advised by the evidentiary hearing panel, and the evidence that they all relied on, including the video from the school bus.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. It's unusual that we get a recommendation from PLSB for 6 months. So is there some reason they wanted to suspend for 6 months, not a year or two, which we usually see?
The ethics subcommittee, in making the reasonable belief determination and recommendation, recommended a 1-year suspension based on specific items of evidence. The evidentiary hearing panel made the 6-month recommendation. If you look at their determination and recommendation and their findings, they made that based only on the video. So when it is my turn, I'm going to ask you to combine those two things, and I'm going to ask for a 1-year suspension.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Donaldson, have there been any incidents reported, and has he had to be before the superintendent and school board in the over a year since this incident happened?
No, ma'am. He has not.
That's all the questions I have right now.
Thank you, Ms. Zook. Additional, yes, Dr. Hill.
For Ms. Harris-Ritter, I had a question. And what's I want to make sure I'm clear on facts. There are the difference in what they're proposing and what was stood was, I can't remember what.
They want probation. We want a suspension.
Okay, all right, so
okay,
that's what I want to make sure.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Dean.
What happens if the 2 years probation is broken or?
They said you immediately suspend his license.
Immediately suspending his license, okay.
Is that
long?
true, Mr. Donaldson, that you recommended that, or your part of your proposal is if he violates anything during his probation, that you would expect him to immediately have his license suspended?
Oh, I think he'd be back in there having his license suspended, yes.
For how long?
Well, there's a difference, and he'd be back in here to have his license suspended, then you're agreeing that he would come back in here, without coming back in here, have his license suspended.
Well, I mean, he's entitled to some due process. When you
Okay.
say if anything happens, I mean, I don't know what that means. So it's hard for me to say, yes, he'd be willing to say his license can be suspended if he's late getting to work one day or something. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I certainly think if there were any incident involving any kind of disagreement, confrontation with a student, yes, I think that would be appropriate. But, I can think of a range of things that, I wouldn't want to sit here and stipulate that should result in an automatic suspension of his license. So,
What are the parameters of the probation? I mean, what are the parameters?
It's going to be the same as probation that you guys order in every case that you've decided where probation has been ordered. And it's going to require that he comply with the things that I enumerated as far as the training and the reflections as well. But as far as, you know, any additional detail about the probation, it's going to be no different than the probation that any other person that receives probation, whether by order or by, you know, consent, would receive. So it's going to be the same.
Well, and this is for Ms. Ritter-Harris, Ms. Harris-Ritter. If there is a probation, typically that is connected with that is if there is any additional sanctioning, it is an automatic suspension, right?
Well,
Or is that
not
not?
exactly. First of all, if the PLSB knows about it and there's a violation during probation, then the PLSB can file an allegation right there and bring it back. But it's not automatic. There are due process considerations, just as Mr. Donaldson indicated. He would still be able to teach, and there would be on his record in our files that he had been on probation for 2 years.
And I don't know if this question is for the teacher, coach, or the attorney, but what is the relationship? Okay, since you have a superintendent who recommended termination and you had a board who overruled, how has that working relationship impacted their professional working relationship and his ability to work effectively with the students he coaches?
Coach Clay, I'll be glad to let him speak to that. He's going to be the personal witness. To my knowledge, that's not been a problem at all, and he's performed all of his duties, again, without incident and sufficiently ever since. I know, personally, I know the superintendent who's leaving, and he's actually moving to South Carolina where he has some young grandchildren. I also personally know the incoming superintendent, Dr. Fenner, that testified, and I know y'all got a huge packet of materials, and one of the things in there would have been the testimony of Dr. Fenner, but Dr. Fenner personally testified to the importance that he places on having Coach Clay there to help him implement the programs that he has in mind for the Marion School District when he takes over July the 1st. So I think it's hard to get a stronger endorsement from somebody than the incoming superintendent about the importance of an employee. And the probation, again, I think serves the need you may have to deter conduct from Coach Clay and others, but at the same time allows him to be able to continue performing his duties. And so I think it's a reasonable compromise.
Questions?
Yes.
So the new incoming superintendent has requested, what is his recommendation? I mean, explain that to me.
He testified at the hearing before the evidentiary hearing panel, as did 3 of his board members, as to the importance of Coach Clay to the school district, as to Coach Clay's terrific history as an educator there in the Marion School District. And so they requested that he not be suspended at that hearing.
In short and to the point, he wants him.
Absolutely, he wants him.
All right, I will make sure.
Absolutely. And, this is not a forum to present additional testimony, so I can't call Glenn Fenner. I didn't call him again because
I didn't want that.
I understand.
I didn't want that.
But you can look at his testimony, and that's exactly what he said. He wants him. So, yes. Now, if you really want to hear from him about what he's been doing in the year since we had the Marion School Board, I'll be glad to let Coach Clay address that if you still want to hear that. Mrs. Zook, I think that was your...
That's the pleasure of the board. If any board members would like to hear testimony, I just would have to swear you in, sir, prior to it. Yes.
Could I just add something before we...
Ms. Harris-Ritter, yes. If you could come to the mic, please.
Thank you. The board can either accept or reject the settlement offer. But if you reject it and you have the state board review, you can make any decision you want about what type of sanction you believe is appropriate. I don't know if all of you have seen the video on this. If you haven't or you'd like to see it again, we can show it to you. The school board members weren't there that day. when this happened, and I don't want you to lose sight of the student in this. So we'd be glad to show it to you now or during the state board review following this, if we have it.
No, thank you. And as a point of order, Ms. Harris-Ritter, before you sit down, so depending on the outcome of action agenda item A5 determines whether A6 is
Correct.
considered or not, correct?
If you accept the settlement offer, then we won't have the other one.
And then otherwise, if we don't, then we proceed into
Yes.
the actual A6, yes, which is the hearing itself to which you've alluded to.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification for everyone there. So with that, in regards to making a decision on the settlement offer, does any of my colleagues have any additional questions or concerns they would like to voice? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion in regards to specifically action agenda item A5, which is the settlement offer. And Ms. Harris-Ritter, just to confirm that appropriate here is accept or deny, correct?
That's correct.
So the motion would be to either accept the settlement offer or deny the settlement offer. Or any additional information that my colleagues need to make a decision? Yes, Ms. Newton.
I guess my question is to the members of the board, have all of you watched the video and gone through the materials? Okay, all right. So since some of us have not, I think we need to deny and go through a hearing then.
Would you like to turn that into a motion, Ms. Newton?
Yes, I move that we deny.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Newton, seconded by Mr. Williamson. Comments by
Just
Dr.
a
Barth.
comment. I'm supportive, and I think we also need to be very careful about setting precedent for bypassing the process that I think we have gotten more and more confidence in, and so that's additionally why I'm supportive.
Thank you, Dr. Barth. So with that, all in favor of the motion? Again, motion made by Ms. Newton, seconded by Mr. Williamson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously to deny the settlement offer. And so that means we will move into action agenda item A6, which is the evidentiary hearing and findings and recommendations. So once again, Ms. Harris-Ritter, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. As we all know by now, Educator Clay has requested State Board review and oral argument before you in PLSB case number 16149. Mr. Donaldson will address you first on this case, and he will have 10 minutes to do so. When he has finished his allotted time, I will then present the PLSB argument, and I will also have 10 minutes. You may ask questions of either or both of us during the presentations or after them. Thank you. Mr. Donaldson.
And Mr. Donaldson, will at any point, will your client be offering testimony so that I swear him in?
No, I'm not planning on presenting any testimony, so
Okay, thank you so much. So then, Mr. Donaldson, you're recognized for your 10 minutes.
thank you. As we talked about briefly already, this case against Coach Clay was the subject of a lengthy hearing before the evidentiary hearing panel back on February 10th of this year. It's the job of that panel to hear the evidence, determine the facts, and make a recommendation to you. In its written decision dated the same day as the hearing, February 10, 2017, the only facts found by the hearing panel were one, on March 1, 2016, Educator Clay, head basketball coach and dean of students, accompanied the Marion High School boys basketball team on a school bus from Marion to Russellville for the state basketball championship tournament. Two, when the bus arrived at the tournament, there was a confrontation between Educator Clay and a student that was recorded on video. The confrontation continued just outside the bus, and that portion was not caught on video, but some portions are audible. The hearing panel's decision contains no findings of fact as to what actually transpired during this confrontation. However, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the hearing panel's decision does contain one significant conclusion, and that was, quote, there was no conclusive proof that Educator Clay intentionally struck the student outside of the bus, close quote. Despite the lack of factual findings, the hearing panel's written decision recommends, amongst other things, as we've discussed, a 6-month suspension. We've also discussed this same confrontation as the hearing panel characterized it, being the subject of a even lengthier hearing before the Marion School Board shortly after the event. At that hearing, well over 100 people came out to support Coach Clay, and 13 of them from diverse backgrounds testified on Coach Clay's behalf. You were provided with a transcript of the testimony at that hearing. I know it's lengthy. I hope that you took time to look at it. I'm not going to try to go over every witness's testimony because of our time constraints here today, but I do want to highlight the testimony of two people at that Marion School Board hearing. The first is Susanna Thompson. Ms. Thompson has been a teacher at Marion High School for 21 years and has known Coach Clay since he came to work for Marion. Coach Clay grew up in the Marion, but when he came to work for the Marion School District in 2002. At the Marion School Board hearing, Ms. Thompson testified, quote, "Coach Clay has very positive interactions with students at Marion High School. I've never seen a negative interaction at all. In fact, he seems to bring a very positive, consistent authority figure, and that's what we need," close quote. She further testified, quote, "There has been a very noticeable change since Coach Clay has left. Amok may not be the correct word, close maybe." When asked whether she wanted Coach Clay back in the high school, Ms. Thompson testified, "I do. I need him back." The second person whose testimony I want to highlight is Debbie Peters. Ms. Peters has worked at Marion High School for 28 and a half years and has been the librarian there for the past 11 years. She testified, "Coach Irving Clay is one of the most highly regarded administrators in the Marion School District. He has been a source of constant leadership and discipline to young people in our high school and on the MHS basketball team for many years." She further testified, quote, "Coach Clay has always worked with devotion and commitment to encourage students' best behavior on and off the court. And while the job becomes more difficult with each passing year, he continues to strive to do his best. He may not be a perfect man, void of mistakes, but he is a good and thoughtful man who truly is dedicated to his job." As I stated at the conclusion of that lengthy hearing, the Marion School Board voted unanimously 6-0 to reject the superintendent's recommendation to terminate Mr. Clay's employment. A copy of the minutes of that meeting is included in your packet as part of the exhibits. It's in volume 1 at pages 50 through 51, to be specific. Again, Coach Clay, after that hearing, went back to work, both as the Dean of Students at the Marion High School and as the high school boys basketball coach, and he's performed those duties without incident since. I alluded to the board members that came and testified at the hearing on February 10th before the evidentiary panel. One of those was Reverend Jeffrey Richardson, excuse me. He served on the Marion School Board for 25 years, in addition to numerous other civic activities. And he's known Coach Clay for 56 years. When asked about Coach Clay, Reverend Richardson testified, "Fine person that I've grown to respect. Very appreciated person in the community, for our school district, for our children. The ambition that he instills in our children to be a better product, to further themselves in life, is very appreciated in our community." When asked what kind of impact it would have on the school district if Coach Clay were no longer able to teach and coach there, Reverend Richardson responded, "It would hurt us severely. We have built a program trying to enhance discipline and things that our young men need. We don't have a lot of positive role models, and absent of him, it would hurt our school severely." Steve Sutton, another person, has been on the Marion School Board for 26 years and has known Coach Clay since they went to high school together. Testified, "Irving Clay has been an exemplary employee, a great role model for both African American as well as white students. Just been a great mentor to both male and female. I wish we had about 15 of him. In all respects, he's been a great employee. So glad to have him. It would be a travesty to not have him at Marion, which is why I'm here." Mr. Sutton went on to describe the quote, big role, quote, close quote, that Coach Clay helped in assisting the students who were taken into the Marion School District from the Crawfordsville School District and from the Turtle School District to make a smooth transition into the Marion School District. Bart Turner, who's lived in Marion his whole 60 years and been on the school board for 15 years, similarly testified, I wish the school district had 3 or more of him. I think he's a tremendous role model for students. He has a lot of respect. And then I come to Dr. Fenner, who we talked about earlier, who will take over as superintendent July the 1st. Dr. Fenner said, when I came to Arkansas, Irving Clay was a name that you heard in conversations about educators that were making a difference in the lives of young people. And when asked how it would affect him as the incoming superintendent if Coach Clay were not available to assist him, Dr. Fenner responded, well, I don't think it's ever possible to have enough positive role models, particularly working in districts where you have a high concentration of poor students or minority students or both. And I guess the easiest way to answer that is, if I knew there was 10 more like Coach Clay, I'd be trying to hire them tomorrow. Dr. Fenner went on to say, and I would trust him with my own children or any students that I'm charged with just because of the pattern of behavior that he's exhibited over the last 25 years. In the brief that I filed with you guys on behalf of Coach Clay, we cited 11 publicly available cases in which the educator received a lesser sanction than a suspension for conduct more egregious than that alleged against Coach Clay. You have those cases, and because of time limits, I'm probably not going to be able to go through all of them with you, but I would like to highlight a couple, and keeping in mind here what the board found about any contact between Coach Clay not being intentional by Coach Clay. In one case, Michael Darren Dean, case number 15-027, the findings were elbowed a student in the side and grabbed the student around the neck and started to choke him. That educator got 1 year probation and some fines and other things. Stephen Tyler Hart, case number 15032, findings, repeatedly directed the student to sit down, and when the student didn't comply, grabbed the student's shirt to sit him in his desk. That educator got a written reprimand. Deanon Elaine Cagle, 15069, findings, struck the student in the face, slapped the student on the arm during science class, and asked the student not to report that she had slapped him during the science class. 1 year of probation. Casey Lane Spradlin, 15073, called students inappropriate names, crackhead, jackwagon, retarded, used pressure points on students causing pain and embarrassment, and used wrestling moves on students while, quote, roughhousing, close quote, with them, causing pain and embarrassment. A written reprimand. Now, because there's not really an opportunity for me to respond, I'm going to go ahead and take an opportunity. I know one of the things that was in the materials that the PLSB filed were 6 additional cases that they cited, but I would submit to you that those cases are nowhere like the situation here regarding Coach Clay. One of the ones they cited, Jamie Gale Morton, 15152. The findings were struck a student on the hand when he tried to get a pencil off her desk and hit students, plural, in her class. Yeah, her license got suspended. But there's no proof here, as the evidentiary panel found, that Coach Clay hit this student at all.
Mr. Donaldson, I'm afraid
Yes.
you're out of time. If you could kindly wind up your comments, please.
I will do so. I will do so. So, based on all that, in sum, if you follow the hearing panel's recommended 6-month suspension, you're essentially going to bring to a termination. The board, the Marion School District cannot employ somebody whose license is suspended. So you're effectively bringing Coach Clay's career to its end after 29 years in our area, and you're effectively second guessing that school district, that local school board is what you're doing. For all these reasons, you ought to reject the panel's recommendation. And you should and if you determine that a sanction is appropriate, it should be no more severe than probation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. Ms. Harris-Ritter, you're recognized for your 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. You heard a lot about what people who weren't on that school bus think about Mr. Clay. You heard a lot about cases that had nothing to do with this case. Just after the team arrived in Russellville for the state boys basketball tournament on March 1st, 2016, A confrontation started on the bus between Educator Clay and a student. The bus was equipped with a video camera that caught part of the incident. After review of the video from that bus and a review of a number of documents that included the police report of the incident, statements from students who saw the entire incident off the bus and some who only saw part of it, a statement from the student involved, a statement from Educator Clay himself, a statement from the father of the student involved who spoke with Educator Clay by telephone shortly after the incident, and documentation of the school district disciplinary reprimand of Educator Clay that he received for his verbal threat and inappropriate language towards another student less than 4 months before this incident on the bus. That was before this incident. He had already been reprimanded. They also reviewed the PLSB final report of investigation. After reviewing all of this, the ethics subcommittee found that Educator Clay violated Standard 1 when he grabbed, pushed, hit, or had other similar inappropriate contact with a student, used profanity in the presence of one or more students, said, "Get your ass off the bus, I'm tired of talking to you," or similar to a student, and provoked or encouraged a student to hit him. The ethics subcommittee based this reasonable belief of violation on the following. In the video, Educator Clay used curse words, grabbed the student, and appeared to force the student down the stairs of the bus. He taunted the student and encouraged the student to be physically violent toward him. The student grabbed the bar on the bus in an apparent attempt to steady himself. Additionally, after being struck by the student, the educator lunged at the student and had to be restrained. The video did not show any attempt by the educator to de-escalate the situation at any time. As the educator, who's also the dean of students, he was responsible for de-escalating the situation. The student could have sustained severe injuries when the educator pushed him off the bus. During the incident, the educator was the first one to use curse words. The educator contradicted himself during his interview with the PLSB investigator. The educator's statements to the PLSB investigator contradicted what was reflected on the video. The educator's statements to the PLSB investigator contradicted information he provided to the police. The educator has a prior history of similar conduct with regard to using inappropriate language at the school district level. The school district issued a letter of reprimand to him for making a verbal threat and using inappropriate language on November 13th, 2015. Yet the incident at issue in the ethics complaint occurred less than 4 months later. The educator's conduct was willful and it was intentional. Because of the incident, the student was expelled from school and had to complete the rest of the year at another school in another district. The ethics subcommittee's recommendation sanction was a 1-year license suspension, a $100 fine, and specific training that Mr. Donaldson already related to you. This recommendation was rejected by Educator Clay, who then requested an evidentiary hearing, as is his right. During the evidentiary hearing, when I asked him about his behavior on the bus, Educator Clay described himself as like a monster. That is in the transcript of the hearing at page 106, line 4, and those are his words that were made under oath. Like the ethics subcommittee, the evidentiary hearing panel also found that Educator Clay violated Standard 1 of the Code of Ethics. But the determination and recommendation was based on the video alone. The recommended sanction was a license suspension for 6 months, the same fine and training. Those findings from the hearing were that on March 1st, 2016, Educator Clay head basketball coach and dean of students, accompanied the Marion High School boys basketball team on a school bus from Marion to Russellville for the basketball championship tournament. When the bus arrived at the tournament, there was a confrontation between educator Clay and a student that was recorded on video. The confrontation continued just outside the bus, and that portion was not caught on video, but some portions are audible. The panel then determined that the action of educator Clay on the bus reflected poor judgment. A situation was instigated and exacerbated by educator Clay and merits sanction, and there was no conclusive proof that educator Clay intentionally struck the student outside of the bus. That's not the standard that we use. It's a preponderance of the evidence. It's more likely than not conclusive. Suspension of educator Clay's license is appropriate for his violation of Standard 1. I'm asking you to adopt the findings and rationale of both the Ethics Subcommittee and the Evidentiary Hearing Panel. I ask that you suspend his teaching license for 1 year based on all the evidence, not just the video, and assess the $100 fine and require the training that was recommended, because it's clear that educator Clay violated Standard 1, which states, an educator maintains a professional relationship with each student, both inside and outside the classroom. Not only did educator Clay not maintain a professional relationship with this student on March 1st, 2016, but he escalated his prior inappropriate behavior. Remember, this was less than 4 months after he received a letter of reprimand from the school district for a verbal threat and inappropriate language while speaking to a different student in front of other students. Educator Clay's actions this time were more egregious. They included not just inappropriate language, but also grabbing and pushing a student, appearing to force the student down the steps of the bus, lunging at the student and being physically restrained by others after the student hit him in response to educator Clay's actions, and making no attempt to de-escalate the situation at any time. Educator Clay violated Standard 1. His behavior is such that probation is not appropriate and his license should be suspended. The standard of proof required is a preponderance of the evidence. There's no requirement that the proof be conclusive, only that it be more likely than not that it occurred. I urge you to find that it is more likely than not that educator Clay violated Standard 1 of the Code of Ethics by his behavior on March 1st, 2016, when he grabbed, pushed, provoked, and encouraged a student to hit him and lunged at him after he did, without ever making any attempt to de-escalate the situation. I urge you to adopt the findings of both the Ethics Subcommittee and its Evidentiary Hearing Panel. I urge you to sanction educator Clay by ordering that his license be suspended for 1 year, based on all the evidence, not just the video, that he be assessed a $100 fine, and he complete the training that has been recommended. He said under oath that his behavior was like a monster. Please sanction him accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris-Ritter. And with that, I think it's now open to the board for questions, or does he get a rebuttal?
Well, may I?
Well,
here's my concern.
Mr. Donaldson, I'm afraid if my colleagues have questions for you, then they can point to
Well, she
Mr.
said some things that are
Donaldson's.
just flat inaccurate.
And then,
I ought to have
and then my
an
colleagues
opportunity
can
to
definitely
respond to
point questions to you. I do have to open it up as a point of order to the board, and some of them may want to give you an opportunity here. So with that, I leave it to the discretion of the board. Questions?
Yeah, I want to hear.
Yes.
I want to hear what you.
Okay, Dr. Hill?
Well,
Yes, then yes, Mr. Kristi.
Here's one, is she's now said 2 or 3 times that the evidentiary hearing panel based their decision only on the video. That is totally incorrect. That hearing panel had all the same evidence that you have before you now. I don't know what else she thinks they were supposed to consider that they didn't have. So that's just not true.
Yes.
They considered all the facts. Their materials are what you received. So they considered all the facts. It's a misquote of what he says about himself, like a monster. He says it makes me look like a monster. He didn't say I was a monster, I acted like a monster. He knows his behavior on that day doesn't reflect his normal behavior and demeanor. And then another misstatement is, I mean, watch the video yourself, quite frankly, but nobody's ever said he pushed the kid off the bus. That's just not a factually accurate statement. and you know, now we're playing, the PLSB wrote the decision. They used the evidence language that they're quoted. They could have written a different decision, but the point is the evidentiary hearing panel, who heard all this evidence live, found there wasn't sufficient evidence to conclude that he hit the kid off the bus. And I would tell you, I don't have the cite to it, but go back and look to what the kid himself testified, and the kid himself testified that Coach Clay went to brush his hand off and his hand made contact. Even the kid that's the center of this dispute has the same testimony. The incident before, it's not like Coach Clay randomly assaulted some kid. It was this kid's brother. These two kids have been troublemakers at that school the whole time. The kid cussed at Coach Clay, pulled his jersey off, and threw it at him.
I object.
Yes, Ms. Ritter-Harris, you're recognized now. Yes. The board had asked to hear his testimony, and so we were letting him finish that. Yes, Ms.
I understand
Harris-Ritter.
that, but I didn't say anything that wasn't accurate. In the decision that was taken from the transcript of the hearing, the panel based their decision based on what was on the video. Yes, they heard everything else, but they focused only on the video. The other language is from the ethics subcommittee. I think we should show you the video so you can see for yourselves what actually happened on that bus. And the student testified that Coach Clay punched him in the face, not that he accidentally hit him. That's what Coach Clay said, after he told the police that he hit him, and it's in the police report. So if with your agreement, we can show you the video right now.
I turn to the discretion of the board here. Would the board like to see the video?
I'd like to see it.
Would that be? Then, yes, Ms. Harris-Ritter, you may proceed
Thank
with the
you.
showing of the video.
Go to, yes, perfect. He's at the right place.
Is this going out? Is this going out?
Can we take just a pause before we hit play on that, please?
Yes.
Could we have
Commissioner.
about a 2-minute recess?
Oh, so that they can get it
So
set
I
up?
need to ask a question of legal.
Okay, all right. So with that, we'll take a 2-minute recess to allow for technology and conference.
My question is whether or not since this involves children who aren't,
Yeah.
no, I want to talk to.
But we did say recess, so if
Okay.
you could, just so it gets on the record. But then we'll start with you. When we start the recess, Diane, we'll start with you. With that, board and audience, we are going to reconvene with some instructions from our legal department in regards to student privacy here and how we proceed moving forward. So,
thank you, Madam Chair. Lori Freno, Department of Education. We have FERPA concerns with this because there are other students on the bus and they might well show up in the video. You already all have been provided a copy of the video by secured server, and we ask that we take a break. It's only about 2 minutes long, and that you review the video, if you haven't already done so, on your own personal devices. And then that way we do not want this live streaming out. We do not want to take any chances of violating student privacy.
Yes,
And I
Commissioner.
would add to that, that if we have tech folks, if you need assistance bringing it up on your computer, we got folks that can come up and help do that, or on your phone, whatever device you have, we'll be able to support you getting to that.
Yes, and so with that, if I could pose the question to the board, since lunch is here, I don't know, but then at the same time to not inconvenience, I really, it's to the discretion of the board if we watch this and continue the break to have lunch and then reconvene, or would folks want to just take a 5-minute break to watch this, make a final decision, and then go into lunch? What would be the preference? 5-minute break? Okay. 5-minute break, and then so that we can conclude this prior to the lunch. Is that the discretion of the board? I'm seeing predominantly nods here. So for those, again, following us on live stream, we will reconvene at 10 minutes to 1. And at this time, each board member will individually be reviewing the video. And when we recommence, Ms. Zook was making comments, so we'll recognize her first, and then open it up to additional questions and comments from the board. So again, 6-minute break right now. If anyone needs assistance, please raise your hand so that the appropriate tech people from the Department of Ed can support you in that.
Step out and make a phone call. I've already seen the video.